But watch what happens when you ask ChatGPT what it thinks will happen in the real estate market in 2023. ChatGPT and artificial intelligence is making headlines all over the world right now. So I thought I'd ask it what it thinks is going to happen to Canadian real estate in 2023. So in this video, you don't have to take my word for it. We're going to ask something that's way smarter than me and probably most economists out there, right? What's going to happen in Canadian real estate in 2023. And hopefully it's going to tell us how to become real estate millionaires. But before we get into it, my name is Nolan Mathias, and if you want to thrive financially, this is the place for you. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. So I find everything that's going on with ChatGPT really interesting. This is the software where you can go in and you can ask it to write you a YouTube script. By the way, I didn't do that. This isn't how this video came about, although it would be interesting to see what it would say if I asked it to write a script on Canadian real estate for YouTube. So let's do that. Let's say, write me a script on Canadian real estate for YouTube. So this is where it's really interesting because using artificial intelligence, it is able to write a really good script on what a YouTube video should look like. Hi everyone, today we'll be talking about the Canadian real estate market. Whether you're a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, it's important to stay informed about the current state of the market. Geez. I think I've seen this video before. Are my YouTube competitors using ChatGPT to write their scripts for YouTube? Hey, Steve Karish, I'm looking at you. Just kidding. Steve's awesome. He writes his own stuff. Make sure you go and subscribe to his channel. He's trying to beat Tom's Story to 10,000 subscribers. So do him that favor. But this is really interesting because it gives you a body, it gives you bullet points. In fact, I could use this to make a pretty good video on Canadian real estate. For example, the Canadian real estate market has been consistently strong for the past several years. Now that changed recently when interest rates started to go up and the bottom somewhat fell out of the market, especially in places like BC and Toronto. Now, the average home price in Canada has increased by around 5% each year. Obviously, that was significantly higher in 2020 and 2021. Now, low interest rates have also made it more affordable for Canadians in the past. Obviously, that has changed, but for a couple of years there, mortgages were really cheap. However, the market has also faced some challenges here, such as the shortage of affordable housing and tighter mortgage rules introduced by the government to cool down the market. Now, a lot of those rules really have cooled down the market and continue to cool down the market here going forward. But despite these challenges, the Canadian real estate market remains a stable and attractive investment opportunity, especially for those looking to build long-term wealth. Now, this is an interesting point because for real estate investors, might not be the time to buy, maybe time to pump brakes. But over the long term, if you want to build wealth, and Stats Canada just released data on this, being a renter versus being a homeowner has a significant impact on the amount of money that you would have at retirement, with the average renter having about $40,000 and the average homeowner at the time of retirement having about $900,000. Now that's a pretty significant difference, and the difference being that you owned a home, because owning a home is the most reliable way to build wealth because you don't go and sell your house when the value goes down, unlike those investments that tanked by 50% in 2007, which most people offloaded at the worst time. Harder to sell a house, you hold on to it for longer, and as a result, you end up in a situation where over time, it ends up benefiting you quite substantially. And in conclusion, we go back to, it's always a good time to invest in Canadian real estate. Hopefully the AI here is going to learn a little bit about investing in Canadian real estate and whether or not that's always a good idea. But it makes a really good point at the end here, which is if you're interested in buying a home or investing in real estate, make sure you consult a professional. Make sure you consult a highly reputable mortgage broker when you're making your mortgage decisions, someone who's going to look at your risk assessments and so on and so forth. So this is all really interesting. This was all generated on ChatGPT. I didn't prompt this. It just automatically built a really great script for a YouTube channel that focuses on real estate and mortgages like this one. Now, it's going to be interesting at the end of this video when I get into what it says with respect to forecasting the Canadian real estate market, but I want to show you a little bit more of what this can do, because the next question I want to ask it is what factors will have an effect on the Canadian real estate market in 2023? So this is where the AI shows how smart it is, and it shows you that it can predict what the factors are that will affect the Canadian real estate market in a pretty reasonable manner. And this, I think, comes in handy because most people just go, oh, interest rates and housing prices are coming down, but they don't really pay attention to what's actually happening in the market and the lead and lag indicators that could help people make better decisions when it comes to buying and selling. And what's interesting is the factors that it comes up with are really robust. So interest rates, obviously that is first and foremost the thing that has the biggest impact on the Canadian real estate estate market right now, because for every 1% interest rates are going up, it creates about a 10% reduction in buying power. 4% increase in interest rates over the last year, that's about a 40% reduction in buying power and a 40% increase in the amount that people are going to have to pay for their mortgages, at least with respect to long-term interest. Now, it goes on to say the second thing you need to be paying attention to is economic growth. So if you're in a market that has strong economic growth, like Alberta right now, you're probably going to fare better than other parts of the country that maybe don't have strong economic growth. Now, the third thing it points out, again, this software is very intelligent, is housing supply. That is obviously a huge factor, and it's not getting better anytime soon. With higher interest rates, that leads to higher borrowing costs, which leads to builders not necessarily wanting to build as much as they had previously done, especially with housing values coming down and with more immigrants coming into the country. Where's our housing supply going? It's not getting better anytime soon, which is actually propping up the market a little bit and seeing many markets outside of Ontario and BC continue to go up or at least stay steady where they otherwise might be falling. Now, the fourth one, and this is really interesting, government policies, changes to mortgage rules. That is happening right now with OSFI. They are looking at changing the mortgage rules with respect to the stress test, with respect to gross debt servicing and total debt servicing ratios, and that could have an impact going forward. In the short term, it could prop up the market for a very small period of time, and in the long term, it could make housing even more unaffordable as people aren't able to qualify for the amounts of money that they need in order to buy the home that they need. Now, the fifth thing it looks at is demographics, growing population, aging baby boomers. And then it points out that technology could be a factor in the Canadian real estate market. The growing use of online platforms for buying and selling homes can impact traditional real estate practices and influence the market. And that could cut down, in theory, a little bit of the prices of homes as you're not having to pay real estate commissions. But I think most people on the biggest transaction they will ever make in their life still need a professional there to help them. I don't think realtors are going anywhere anytime soon. So this gives a really good synopsis of the things that are likely to impact the Canadian economy and the Canadian real estate market in 2023. So if you're a potential borrower, what you can do is you can go in and say, what factors should I be looking at in the Canadian real estate market? And it's going to give you a pretty good idea of things to look at. Now, what we've always told people is, especially when you're investing in real estate, you want to be looking at specific things when it comes to real estate markets. You want to buy markets that have positive population growth, or more specifically, positive net migration or interprovincial migration. So in other words, people are leaving other provinces and going to that province. You also want to make sure that employment numbers are steady or growing and that incomes are rising. You want to make sure that the economy is growing. You want to make sure that rents are steady or rising. And you want to make sure that housing prices are stable. And if it meets those 5 criteria and you can break even on a property, it usually makes sense to go ahead and buy in those markets. And if you can do better than break even better. And that's the same for purchasing a home to live in. Now, you have some more flexibility when it comes to buying a home to live in, because obviously you don't have to have a property that's absolutely going to make you money because it's saving you money because you're living in it and paying down the mortgage and all of those things. I'll have a video on renting versus buying that covers all these things in the near future. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notification bells if you want to see that. By the way, it's a really simple and strategic way to determine whether or not you should be renting or buying. And it has no spreadsheets, no fluffy math. It's just simple numbers and simple logic that will help you make that decision. And what I really love about this artificial intelligence is it's basically giving you the blueprint for how to monitor your own market. So you can go in, you can type in for the city that you live in, and it'll shoot out the things that you should be paying attention. And then if you've got more positives than negatives, then it makes sense to buy. And if you've got more negatives than positives, well, then you're probably going to have to consider your decisions more carefully. But here's the thing, and this is what I really found interesting and what I really loved about ChatGPT. Check this out. I'm going to ask it specifically what it thinks will happen in Canadian real estate in 2023. This is all the things that the YouTubers are trying to predict, and the economists are trying to predict, and the realtors are trying to predict, and the mortgage brokers are trying to predict, and that people all over Canada have opinions about. But watch what happens when you ask ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence, keep in mind it's intelligent, what it thinks will happen in the real estate market in 2023. So here's the moral of the story. The artificial intelligence knows that it's impossible to predict what's going to happen in Canadian real estate. So when you look at the numbers put out by CREA and the predictions put out by CREA and the predictions put out by places like TD Bank, the reality is they're all guesses. And the artificial intelligence has the intelligence to understand that it doesn't have the ability to predict the future. and nor does anybody else. So I think that as consumers and realtors and mortgage brokers and economists, we can learn something from ChatGPT, and we can learn something from the artificial intelligence. And the takeaway is that predictions are just predictions. Now, if you want to go and take a look at the predictions that TD and Korea made, and by the way, they're drastically different, you can go ahead and check out this video right here.